My final summation, as I estimate it now, should take between 2 and 2.5 days.
Was going on, the man had gotten up, and I saw Tex on top of him, hitting him on the head and stabbing him, and the man was struggling, and then I saw Katie in the back kilogram round with the girl, chasing after her with an upraised knife, and I just turned and ran to the car down at the bottom of the hill. Now, when you told Sadie that people were coming, was that the truth? No. Why did you tell her that? Because I just wanted them to stop. You said you saw Katie. That is Patricia Krenwinkel. Yes. Was she chasing someone? Yes. Was it a man or a woman? It was a woman in a white gown. Linda later testified that she thought the woman had long dark hair, possibly brown. I'm not positive. And you will note later from a photograph of Abigail Folger that she does have long dark hair. You recall that Linda Kasabian was crying on the witness stand when she related her observations of these horrible murders. After Linda observed Tex stabbing Frykowski, she testified that she ran down to the car at the bottom of the hill. She got down on the ground and tried to collect her thoughts. She said her first thought was to go to the police and get help, but I had a vision. What sort of a vision? Charlie entered my head again. Tanya was there and I was just afraid for Tanya's life. Where did you think Tanya, your daughter, was? I knew she was back at the ranch. Where did you think Charlie was? I knew he was back at the ranch. Did Katie and Sally say anything as you were driving off from the residence? What did they say? They complained about their heads, that the people were pulling their hair, and that their heads hurt. And Sadie even came out and said that when she was struggling with a big man, that he hit her in the head. And also Katie complained of her hand, that it hurt. Did she say why her hand hurt? Yes. What did she say? She said when she stabbed, that there were bones in the way, and she couldn't get the knife through all the way, and that it took too much energy or whatever. I don't know her exact words, but it hurt her hand. The poor little sweetheart. Her hands hurt, could you imagine that? If ever there was a sweet little innocent girl, it's Patricia Krenwinkel. Linda testified that after they drove away from the Tate residence, Tex started to look for a place to hose the blood off their bodies. Linda testified that they arrived back at the ranch about an hour to an hour and a half after the murders, which would place their arrival back at the ranch somewhere around 1:30 or 2 a.m. in the morning, when only the goblins are out. But no, Charlie Manson was up. He was up around 2 o'clock all by himself, and in fact almost in the same place in the parking area of Spahn Ranch where he had seen them off a couple several hours earlier. Charlie was not going to go to sleep that night when he sent his robots off on a mission like that. He wanted to know what happened, obviously. I asked Linda, once inside the bunk room. Tex told Manson and the group that when he arrived at the residence where the murders took place, he told the people at the residence, I am the devil here, to do the devil's work. Tex also told Manson that there was a lot of panic and it was real messy and bodies were laying all over the place, but they were all dead. In other words, Tex was reporting. Tex was giving his report to Charlie. Mission accomplished, sir. But even the mission being accomplished was not enough for Charlie Manson. That wasn't enough. That wasn't enough that his robots had just viciously cut down and slaughtered 5 human beings at the Tate residence, their blood probably still trickling out of their dead bodies when Tex reported to Manson. That wasn't enough for Charlie. Charlie wanted assurances from all of them that they had no remorse. He was not just satisfied with the murderers, he wanted to make sure that all of them had absolutely no remorse for what they had done. Of course, why should they have remorse? All they had done was kill 5 human beings. But human beings are pigs, and pigs don't deserve to live. Of course, they all told Charlie that they had no remorse. But even then Manson was not satisfied because his savages had caused fear and panic in the victims, and it was too messy. Charlie did not quarrel with the fact that 5 people had been brutally slain, but he wanted them to be slain in such a way where they didn't panic. I mean, he is a considerate guy. The doctor found 16 stab wounds on Sharon Tate's body, all of which were penetration wounds. 4 of the stab wounds were found in the chest, 1 stab wound to the abdomen, 8 stab wounds in the back, 1 stab wound in the right upper arm, 1 stab wound in the left upper arm, and 1 stab wound in the right thigh. He also testified that he observed 2 rope burn abrasions to Sharon's left cheek. 2 rope burn abrasions to Sharon's left cheek. And he concluded that these rope burn abrasions were caused when Sharon was hanged. Sharon was hanged at the scene. Maybe the correct grammar is hung. The rope connected Sharon Tate's neck with J.C. Bring's neck, and it was also flung over a wood beam, and then it fell back onto the floor. If one were to pull the rope, it would have tightened around Sharon's neck, not J.C. Bring's neck. So, although we cannot be sure, it is entirely possible that Sharon received these 2 rope burn abrasions when either Tex, Katie, or Sadie, probably Tex, pulled on a rope, perhaps temporarily suspending Sharon in the air. But the cause of her death was not hanging. The doctor's autopsy discovered an 8-month-old fetus, an unborn baby, in Sharon's uterus. The doctor estimated that the unborn baby could not have lived in Sharon's womb more than 15 or 20 minutes after Sharon died. Now, although from a legal standpoint an unborn baby cannot be the subject of a homicide, I think you will all agree with me that in a very, very real sense, 6 human beings lost their lives. The total number of stab wounds to the 5 victims was 102. Ladies and gentlemen, 102 stab wounds. Barbara Hoyt, the 18-year-old girl who was a member of the family, who was a member and lived with the family at Spahn Ranch and at the desert between April and September of 1969. She said the first time she heard about the Tate murders was on TV the day after the murders. She said she was watching television when Susan Atkins came into the trailer and wanted to watch the news. Susan asked Barbara to turn the channel, and Barbara turned it to channel 2 for the 6 o'clock news. She said Sadie called Tex and Patricia Krenwinkel into the trailer, and she is pretty sure that Tex and Katie actually came into the trailer to watch the news. She said the group watched the TV account of the Tate murders. At one point, a couple of the group watching TV laughed. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Watching the TV account of the Tate murders, and they are laughing, ladies and gentlemen. Can you believe it? Stop to think about it for a moment. Yes, 5 people being brutally slain and butchered like animals is a rather amusing event. Right after the news, Sadie and Tex and Katie left the trailer. Barbara testified that in late August she went to the desert in Inyo County, California, with Manson, Tex, and several of the girls in the family, and they lived at Barker Ranch, Myers Ranch, and Lotus Mine, moving from place to place. Barbara Hoyt also testified that in September of '69, while at Myers Ranch, she heard Sadie tell Ruth Morehouse, also known as Wish, that Sharon Tate came out and she said, "What is going on here?" or something like that, and Sadie said, "Shut up, woman." She said Sadie also told Wish that Sharon Tate was the last to die because she had to see everybody else go first. If there ever was a little sweetheart on the face of this earth, it was Susan Atkins. This statement by Susan Atkins, standing alone, without anything else, is enough to convict her of all 5 counts of murder, ladies and gentlemen. Virginia Castro. Mrs. Castro also goes by the name of Virginia Graham, and I will be referring to her as Virginia Graham. She testified that in October and November of '69, she was incarcerated at Sybil Brand Institute for Women in East Los Angeles, and while there she met Susan Atkins, whom she knew as Sadie Glutz. She said that the other girls used to make fun of Sadie because Sadie would do exercises without any underclothing underneath, and she would sing and dance to go-go all the time, and this type of behavior just simply didn't seem to fit the environment out at Sybil Brand. After all, that is a jail out there. She said the other girls used to laugh at Sadie, and every time Sadie would come by, or frequently, they would say, "There goes Sadie Glutz." She said, by and large, other girls used to ignore Sadie. This caused Virginia Graham to feel somewhat sorry for Sadie, and she tried to befriend her and become friendly with her. She testified that on or about November the 6th, 1969, she had a conversation with Sadie about the Tate murders. The conversation took place around 4:45 p.m. on Virginia Graham's bed. What were the circumstances leading up to the conversation about the Tate murders? Well, we started talking. We were talking about many things. and then the conversation drifted onto LSD, which I, myself, had taken one time, and we discussed LSD for a while. And then I warned Sadie that she talked entirely too much. I told her that I didn't care particularly what she had done, but I didn't think it was advisable for her to talk so much. She told me that she wasn't really worried about it. And she also told me that she could tell by looking at me, my eyes, that I was a kind person, and that she wasn't worried about it anyway. And that the police were on the wrong track about some murders. And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said to me, "The murders at Benedict Canyon." And just for a moment I didn't quite snap to what she meant, and I said, "Benedict Canyon?" And she said, single quote, "Why yes. The Tate murders." And she said, "You know who did it, don't you?" And I said, "No, I don't." And she said, "Well, you are looking at her." When she told you this, I take it you were probably somewhat shocked, is that correct? Yes. Well, what did Susan Atkins tell you with respect to the Tate murders, taking it from the very beginning? She said that after she entered the house, the Tate house, she proceeded toward the bedroom. She noticed a girl sitting in a chair reading a book. The girl didn't look up and notice her. She continued toward the bedroom and she reached the bedroom door. Sharon Tate was sitting in bed with a pillow propped up behind her, and J.C. Bring was sitting at the side of the bed, and they were engrossed in conversation, and at first she wasn't noticed. Did you ask her how Sharon Tate was dressed? Yes, I did. She said she had a bikini bra and pants on. Did she identify the person who was seated at the bed with Sharon? Yes, she did. What name did she give? J. Sebring. Did she say whether or not Sharon Tate and J. Sebring eventually entered the living room of the Tate residence? Yes, she did. After Sharon Tate and J. Sebring entered the living room, what did Susan Atkins say took place? She said that the other man. Now, when you say other man, did she indicate that this was a man other than J. Sebring? Yes, sir, she did. What did she say about this other man? She said that the other man ran past her, and as he ran past her, she stabbed him 4 or 5 times. He got to the door and he started screaming for help. He got out onto the front lawn and he was screaming, "Help, help, somebody please help." And with this, she put her hand on her hip and she said to me, "And would you believe that he was screaming, 'Help, help,' and nobody came?" This is what Susan Atkins told you? That's right. What else did Sally say she did? She said she was holding Sharon Tate's arms behind her, and that Sharon Tate looked at her and she said she was crying and said to her, "Please, please don't kill me. I don't want to die. One just want to have my baby," she said. And I looked Sharon straight in the eye and I said to her, "Look, bitch, you might as well face it right now. You're going to die, and I don't feel a thing behind it." And in a few minutes she was dead. Did Susan Atkins say whether she in fact killed Sharon Tate? Yes, she did. What did she say? She said, "You killed her." Did Miss Atkins say anything about blood at that point? Yes, she did. What did she say? She said that she had blood in her hand, and she looked at her hand and she took her hand and she put it up to her mouth and she said, "To taste death and yet give life." Wow, what a trick. Not just a robot, but a bloodthirsty robot. Bloodthirsty robot. Can you believe that? Susan Atkins is tasting Sharon Tate's blood. Unbelievable. Did Miss Atkins ask you if you had ever had that type of experience with blood? Yes, she did. She asked me and was interested in blood, and I said that I had seen it, and she said that it was really beautiful, that it was warm and sticky. Did she say anything about the eyes of the people there at the Tate residence? Yes, she did. She told me that she wanted to take their eyes out and squash them against the wall, and cut their fingers off, but that she didn't have time. Susan, of course, is just a cloistered nun type, ladies and gentlemen. She is as innocent, of course, as a newborn baby, a little darling. Did Miss Atkins tell you anything about who was the last to die at the Tate residence? Yes, she did. What did she say? She told me Sharon was the last to die.